Welcome to another edition of Small Town Times Between Two Daves. I have former councilor Dave Mendicino, and I have farm operator and downtown improvement area. I think it's called North Bay Downtown now, Katie Bevan.
Yes, I'm the chair.
You're the chair.
Yes.
Right on. The chair in the love seat.
Chair of Downtown, North Bay, and Waterfront.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is the DIA as people know it, but we are a BIA.
Yeah. Business improvement area.
Exactly.
Which gets to the point of this podcast, which is we're going to talk about the most pressing issue is the discussions about a homeless hub for the closer to downtown is what's being proposed. And you have a letter to the DSAB saying, whoa, there hasn't been enough consultation through that report. So we're going to get down to the nitty gritty about that. But first, we're going to talk about all the great things happening in downtown because there are a bunch of important improvements being made. Katie?
Yeah, so I'll just jump in. Basically, right now, as you can see, right outside our door is a major construction project. Mm-hmm. So this is, been going on this is the second year, complete year, and it's a large investment, just resurfacing. We're getting some new lighting and some new trees that will grow a little larger down here, have a nice tree canopy. So there's a lot of moving parts to that. Making Over on Main Street is the city title for it, and you can get any info from there, and it's great. You can get updates. So that is a huge thing that's very visual right now. We're getting through it, and they've been great to work with.
Short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yes, we're as much as obviously having your front yard dug up and your access limited, we're very, very happy about the investment. Sure. That is happening because it needed it. Unfortunately, the bricks and everything did need an upgrade, and they're just not made like they used to be. So there were some accessibility issues, among other things.
Not like these good bricks.
Yeah, they're on the wall. So so that's part of it. I'm trying to think. So the Waterfront, and
Do you mind if I jump in?
Please. You guys are running the show here.
There you go.
Go for it.
So it was. It started with this stuff like this doesn't happen overnight. It started with last council. There was a very focus from the last council. Castle Home, Community Recreation Center, and the downtown were the three top. So putting the funding in place for the reconstruction. Mm-hmm. I think it's almost up to 8 or 9 million these days.
It's just over 9.
Yeah. So past council provided most of those funds. This council totally supports moving in that direction, and they were able to find additional funding. The other focus from the last council that's been brought forward to this council was the development of the waterfront. Let's start putting some attractions down there, because the more you put down there, the more people will come down. Multi-use courts. Mm-hmm. And we started the initial planning for the all-wheel park. Mm-hmm. And now this council construction is starting. If it hasn't started already, it will be starting soon,
I believe.
And then the playground is also in the works. Multi-use courts are there. So all of a sudden you're starting to get these attractions that people are now coming down. And once they're here, hopefully they stay and wander down to the main street, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah, and that stuff, we're seeing that, that life happening. Having things downtown that are free and accessible to everybody, all different people, families, seniors going for a walk, and just anybody is really good. So that's why public art has been... we have been working with PAC, the Public Art Committee. Mm-hmm. I sit on that to represent downtown. So that's a huge one because that's a visual. You walk around and you can kind of take some things in. And then obviously, the parks and the multi-use courts, I think, have been the biggest. Like we saw right away, mm-hmm. that need. It was so needed. So to have that here, it just creates this positive atmosphere, and we're so lucky to be so close to the waterfront. Like mm-hmm. North Bay is just it's a gem. We have it. We're just lined right there. So to have that connection, and then that hopefully helps business growth as well, but also some new business and maybe even longer hours eventually. You know, it's all part of the big puzzle. And so obviously we worked together when you were in office, and all of these things that we've, you know, been talking about for years and years, we're seeing it happen, and it's motivating.
And we started having discussions a number of years ago about very few downtowns have a waterfront next to them.
Yeah.
And so how do we take more advantage of that? So implementing the downtown waterfront master plan, that was big. So you're seeing that now happen. Eventually, once all this is done, I'd love to see now a further continuation down to Memorial Drive and you know, make that connection, right? You said it. We've got a gem here, and that part of it, we're all moving in the right direction, I think. Yeah. And it's good to see that this council is on board with all that.
Oh, and they have been. They in all their platforms, downtown was in there, and it's also because this investment was coming up, but it was already started too. So it's important because it's that next chapter. Like, what's next? And that whole, like you said, like the Lee Park. Like, we have this really neat loop that goes to Ferris, you know, and I think it's important for people to know. Obviously, so we're a BIA, so we're the DIA. We are here to represent the small business community down here, retail, services, offices. That's who our voices for, and so we're obviously loud with downtown. But if the rest of the community is also thriving, that's only going to help us. So we want to work with other partners and other, you know, we want to expand our reach eventually when we do have the capacity where needed, because it is all part of this, you know, bigger picture of North Bay. And it's not about commercializing everything. I think that's important too. It's about having this like healthy, walkable, like, there's a lot of parking down here. I'm sorry, but there is. Maybe it's a little limited right now, and it can get a little busy on certain days. But having people realize how nice it is to walk. Like, so they can walk Memorial Drive, and people do constantly. But like, you can loop around and come downtown, you know. So you could start here, and you can do a nice little loop, and and really spread it out.
Live, play, shop.
Yeah.
Live, work, play, shop. Right? Am I missing anything there?
I don't know. I think that's
covered.
Yeah, I think that's.
I mean, the living component is something that's we've started seeing as well, right? Repurposing buildings, fixing upstairs, the DSIP, the downtown, the GSIP, the Growth Community Improvement Plan, has helped with refurbishment of buildings. So there's a major investment being made in the downtown, similar to the investments that have been made in the past in the downtown, like purchasing the waterfront, like Memorial Drive, you know, building that, like
the tunnel, when the tunnel went in.
There's over the last 30 years, there's been significant investments. I feel like it's all kind of culminating now, coming together.
It does feel like there's that momentum, and then we're at that tipping point. And so it's just really like looking at those opportunities when you're at that tipping point to push you in a positive direction, right? Yeah.
Which maybe brings us to the other topic that we wanted to discuss. And, you know, obviously, just a real quick, when I decided to run again in 2018, started coming to the downtown a little bit and paying a little bit more attention. And I was so shocked from 2014 to 2018 how the homeless situation had advanced. And we've only seen it get, as much as people are putting in a lot of work and professional, they're committed to fixing the problem. I mean, I think we're sitting here today and the problem still exists. And maybe before we get into that, let's talk about the Homeless Hub report a little bit. What are I mean, the concept itself, how do you feel about that?
So I did read the DSAB report by, I believe it was Vinx Consulting, and I might be getting that wrong. But to me, the idea of it, Homeless Hub, Connection Center, whatever it ends up being called, because that's a big thing too, it makes sense. It's a cross-collaborative network of care. You're sharing resources. It's a one place to get a lot of access to the services. But I do also, in that study, you can see that there are things that need to be in place that actually make it successful. And our fear as an organization is if these decisions aren't collaborative to actually build the program, and that includes the private sector and especially residents, like wherever it is going to be, then I don't think we're not on the right path, right? So I do think obviously there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, a lot of opinions, a lot of facts, like there's just a lot out there, but I do think it's all worth it to get a little bit messy, really open up that dialogue, have some actual real conversations from public and private sector. And I think that's the big thing that I'm learning here, is that it doesn't cross over as much, right? So, and obviously not. We're in our silos, we're trying to protect our investments, and they have a mandate to kind of follow. But I think we're at the point now that if you want it to really be successful in your community, you need to really have that work ahead of time. So I think sitting around the table and talking to DSAB, as soon as we voiced an opinion, as soon as our letter went out, it really was the door opened for conversation. And I'm honestly just been very impressed with that and how everyone is having kind of a bit more of a real conversation. And then I think that I'm hoping, like we'll find out, but I'm hoping things are lining up nicely to collaborate more on and have some input from different community partners and residents. Yeah.
I got a question, maybe you can help me out on this. How many pharmacies are downtown that serve the addictions clientele?
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna generalize this. Sure. We're starting to get measurables more, because obviously we did get brought into this conversation not at the study level. So that was our big thing, is we weren't consulted, right? But we were recommended as an area. So here we are kind of working backwards. So and Building Blocks has helped us with this. They're helping us figure this out because we don't have a large capacity. We have one employee on the DIA. So.
And Building Blocks, for everybody to understand, is a group of investors who have properties downtown.
Yes, yeah, and they are our members. Yeah. Like, we are representing them, so we're, they're go-getters, and we're trying to, share the information, resource share. So I think it was about, honestly, there's probably about 4 or 5 just here on the main street alone. I think it's somewhere like up to almost 8 even. So it just depends on how you're kind of classifying them. But there is, compared to the population.
That provide the, forget the name of the substance, but it's to replace the drugs that they're addicted to.
Like methadone?
Methadone clinics.
Yeah.
We used to call them methadone
clinics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one part of the conversation. And this is also what we're trying to figure out. Is there's like a high level of functioning, people that use that, and it's helping them, right?
Yeah. And they're not necessarily the issue people are worried about as far as homeless people and the addicted and the thieves.
Yeah, and it's all a very different approach, and I feel like everything's getting lumped together.
Yeah.
And this is where
they're separated.
Yeah, so this is where we're at as an organization, is we're really trying to. We are 100% supportive of a system upgrade, basically, in healthcare. And, looking at other big cities and everything, we're lucky in the fact that we're a little late in the game because of our climate. So we can learn from other cities. And now you do see other cities are kind of going backwards, and it is becoming more of a healthcare epidemic. Like, how do we answer that, Our fear is this magnet effect. So let's say the homeless hub went downtown. So we fear, because we need more retail. We want more restaurants. We need more of those things. We want so many people working here. We love all the staff that, we get to know them. They're our downtown family. And they're our regulars. So we want all of that. But if we go too heavy on say a homeless hub was here, it would create this magnet of services that would cater to that industry, which makes sense. But then all of a sudden it is pushing out the appeal to invest in more creative, unique grassroots businesses, private sector. And that private sector is in line, that growth is in line with the investments in the city plan, and all of the things that we've been working, that we first started, that's what we're protecting, right? So it's important to know, we know it has to, we need something for sure, but we do need to start looking at everybody as individual groups. So
I guess it comes down to also, if not here, where?
Yeah.
Right? And what would make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's possible or not, because it's always going to have an impact. Location. Now, we talked before about, well, how close is convenient for the services and the concept, and how far away is necessary to not make it a magnet for that industry that would impact people's investment decisions.
It's kind of a fine line, because if you, whether if you put it on the outskirts, well, are you going to be wasting your money? It's tough to say. You've heard me say it's got to be central. Like, I still keep on going back to that property that was right adjacent to the gathering place that the city put an offer in, and for whatever reason they had to back out. But that building could have been put on the table to maybe potentially create this hub. Again, I'm not saying.
Interestingly enough, it's halfway between here and the little barrier shelter.
Which, again, for me, if the hub is done correctly and the services are in there to help these individuals, because you're going to start seeing repeated visits. You're not just going to the gathering place and then you're leaving there and you're going to the warming center, and then you're leaving there and going. Everything is in one, so the professionals can deal with these individuals. And what I've learned is, the more interaction, like the Healthy Community Ambassador Program, the more interactions you have with the individuals, the better chance of success you have them to get them off the street. So that location to me would have been something that could have been ideal. Again, I'm not in discussions behind the scenes anymore, but that could have been a potential location.
And I'm not sure what the businesses around there would think of that. That's a tail end of a business sort of.
But these individuals are there already. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. So this is where can I come in?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
only because I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Because I've had so many conversations with peers, with our membership, and with people in. To me, the Central District, like, there's the DIA. We are a very small portion of the downtown, to be honest. So. When you think of a downtown, so the Central District is like it is, the bubble's bigger. So it does involve boroughs. It involves the like the old chief. It involves like I'm trying to think of the right word, but that domino effect.
To the Memorial Gardens is the Central
exactly.
District. To
me, that is like something we need to protect as a heritage area too. Like, there's so much more to this. Like, I do understand, like, when you're looking at it and thinking that is a good location, but the more I'm like peeling back the layers on everything and just playing devil's advocate really and just asking some questions, I think it's creating, you're gonna create all that traffic is going to go into people's backyards. It's going to go into the businesses that are around there. It is going to come down here. And again, maybe it's the right choice, who knows, but we need to have these conversations around the table, right?
If it's not impacting businesses, it's impacting residential.
Yeah. And to me, just the way North Bay is, I just feel like downtown does go beyond that. Just like the waterfront, it goes the other way. To Memorial Gardens is a great example. And it is this like really, there's these old heritage homes. You kind of look like back on the way that downtowns were created. Like Ferguson is this lovely, like you come straight from, you know, you can look
Castles
right down
and
it, you see the
Fisher,
museum, and then the waterfront's behind it. Like it was set up like that for a reason. And so to protect that, because then also that, to me, like let's say in a perfect world, we had this like we outgrew our boundaries downtown, right? And then it would go to Castles. Then all of a sudden Castles becomes their own BIA and their own healthy business community. And then that goes, it feeds into like the Memorial Gardens and then the schools. Then that actually also trickles over to Ferris. And so you've got this sprawl of success, really. So that's me, a dreamer, right? Thinking like, if we make the right decision, we could be on the right side of history or the wrong side. And like, I really do think this is the first thing that's really come up, that as a chair of this organization, that I feel confident that my membership and our peers beyond that are standing behind us. And it is just really getting people to look at the big picture of North Bay. So for example, again, this is just me saying things, but like, why aren't we looking at McEwen closer to the hospital? You know, like why aren't we, there's affordable housing around there, and I know there's going to be people that are upset by that, but it's just like, why aren't we looking at that? And also why we need to look at the hub concept compared to other little micro, like warming centers, maybe in different areas. You know, I just think piloting things is a really neat idea. I know it takes resources, a lot of money, but that's where we're at, is we're challenging the thought of really just like looking at the impact, like, because it is those that it impacts, it is huge. It's huge.
And again, you talk about McEwen, and I think you said it, that would, you know, you'd have individuals or businesses in that area that would be, hey, you're not put, you know, so who knows what, but through proper consultation and maybe discussions with private business, which
there's another layer to this, actually, Dave. Don't mean to interrupt, but let's talk about why the homeless people like being around downtown, other than access to services. I don't think they're actually here for that. It's a place that provides little alcoves for a little privacy. It's a place where they feel like they're close to a park, and there's life. Maybe, you know, that it's something that they like to be around. People like to be in downtown. Yeah, like all people, right? And so this is the thing, though. If we concentrate it all in one spot, like, is that who is it serving to? Again, homelessness, mental health addictions, and crime are all different. Yes, they overlap, but they're very different. So let's break that down in the homeless hub, right? So does everybody have a place? And then there are the people that just don't want help. So that they need to be accounted for, and they're not. Full shopping cart, luggage, better stuff than I have. She's obviously living on the streets with everything she owns. It looks like she has some addiction problems. Probably some mental health problems. Addiction is a mental health issue, but she didn't seem unhappy, and she's just moving from the spot that she is in the morning to where she likes to be in the afternoon. Yeah,
and a lot of it is like shade.
Yeah, shade, safe place for their belongings.
Safe place for the belongings, and, big time.
And not too much privacy where they can be victimized.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you mentioned the crime component, and that's been frustrating. For just to see how that's gone. We need to get a little tougher on the crime part of it. Some tough compassion, if you will, maybe. I don't know if that's, but and I just I'm encouraged by. I did meet the new police chief very briefly at Twigs while he was there with his community kind of discussions. But I've been encouraged by what he's been saying in the media. A new, fresh set of eyes has come now. That's in law enforcement has come here, and he's looking at things a little differently. And I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing, because the crime component we do need to get a little tougher.
Did you see the interview we did, Scott and I, with the Echo Essentials podcast with the Chief of Police?
That's what that's one of the things I'm
just plugging.
He
gave a good long form discussion, and he provided a good explanation of his perspective, what it's built on, and what he sees as some of the key ways to network and work out some of the issues. And it's dealing with his resources for mental health at the hospital that needs to be solved, and then there's some other issues where they can be doing other parts of their job. For those that are homeless, that are victimizing others for theft, they can deal with those ones a little bit more. Rod Biltz, we did an interview with him, and he's talking about how legislative
so I was going to say that
be made.
Big time.
Yeah. And how do you understand that? It's that mental health, you have an ability to force treatment on somebody, but addictions you can't. So they want to make addictions under the Mental Health Act, so that they can help somebody that's not helping themselves, that's needs help.
If they're harming themselves,
harming themselves and a harm danger to the public.
Yeah.
When you're not in a capacity to make a good decision for your own health, right?
And you know what? The numbers are so. When you look at North Bay, we're 53,000 people. Are we talking about 50 people, 40 people, 60 people? It's not a lot. It's definitely not over 100. Yet, I don't think.
I think it was
the crime component.
I heard like a 300 number the other day.
That's total though, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm just thinking about the crime component.
Oh, okay.
I don't think but the crime component it causes the most havoc, and it disrupts the rest of us, quite frankly. I mean, in terms of what everyone else, the citizens trying to enjoy the waterfront, trying to enjoy.
And that's the thing, is it's like we do live in this world of judgment and fear, no matter what, right? We do. But it's hard because there's so many moving parts to this. So you've got, obviously there's the crime part, but we need to talk to the people that are actually living that life. Like, there's like, so the proactive stuff that's happening in schools. We met with the chief of police too, and I'm happy he's looking at it like a very big picture, and he's really getting to know it, which is really refreshing. So there's that piece. There's the legislation, so lobbying the government, federal, provincial. We're working on that as an organization because we realize that if the hub does go forward, we have people fighting for funding, and that is insane to me because the end goal is the same, right? But it's all, the work is getting lost because they're fighting for funding. These social services programs and so there's that. There's also just actually talking to the people living on the streets and be like, well, why do you, like, the people that choose to, as opposed to the people that actually were forced out because there's not affordable housing. So it is like, it's so layered. Right?
And you mentioned the hub in terms of what's the goal, what's the ultimate goal of the hub? Well, the ultimate goal, obviously they need warmth and shelter and food, but ultimately the goal is to get them to Northern Pines. There's 61 beds there. That's a mini mental health and addiction hospital that's ready to go, funded, and the hospital is in there now providing services.
How many people are in there now?
The third phase isn't open yet. I think the third phase is roughly about 30 beds, but the last time I checked, there was 20 individuals in there.
Right. So
and 20 individuals that are, I know there's been a big uproar. We've talked about this big uproar about, well, it's close to a school. But those 20 individuals, there's no drugs involved. They are getting help.
Those are the ones that
it's the low barrier part of that that needs to get out of there, and
that's this magnet, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we challenge, like, is the hub the answer? Because if Northern Pines is working as it like, it's CBC did a really cool coverage on that too, and we learned a lot as an organization just from that. Let's talk about that model and like let's really analyze that.
Of the solution.
Yeah, exactly.
That's underway.
And so, like, could that exist also in another little section of town? Could we try that? So so I don't know. It's like pretty complicated, obviously. I think for a downtown perspective, again, the private having we need the backbone of the community is the small business community. We're the ones that the tourists are coming to see. So it is very important that I think we're in these conversations, and this is new, I think, for everybody to have that, the private sector represented, having a stronger voice. So that is important to us, but also just there's the short-term solutions and the long-term solutions. The long-term ones are worth like picking away at to get to a better goal. And that's maybe taking a pause and not making that permanent decision just right yet, like next week kind of thing. Let's work on the temporary, make sure people are warm and like protected from the elements. But also it's getting people just walk around your downtown, like just feet, like just any people that are down here is positive, and that's like the short term, like what can we do, to kind of help the situation.
Have they done an audit of the number of people that are in low income housing downtown in the apartments? Because I remember talking to somebody about one of the reasons why people rented down here, because it was affordable, because some of the buildings weren't as high priced as others for whatever reasons. Even like all the way from Partners Billiards, right?
Yeah.
And down that way. Like how many people actually live downtown that are on the edge of
like being homeless.
On the edge of being homeless.
Yeah.
Basically, even like if you're,
Look at that unit, that apartment beside Cheapskates.
Yeah.
Right? That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many people actually live down here that are on the edge, in and out of homelessness, addictions, crime, and unemployed.
Yeah. And so that's a really good question. So here's where we're at is that we don't have these measurables. I don't, but this is what the questions that need to be asked, because from a business perspective, because this is like the business of life, right? Like we need to take care of people and also grow our communities. So you have to approach it kind of as a business mind. And to me, I wouldn't make an investment if those numbers weren't there, right? So that's also, I completely agree. We need to know that. A question, I was told at a meeting, like, this is, the affordable housing is downtown. And I just automatically was like, oh yeah. And I'm like, well, wait, it's not. Like, it's not all down here. It's all around. We have pockets everywhere and we need more of it. What we have down here is we now have people buying and refurbishing lofts, lovely old spaces that are being turned to high-end lofts. We have old heritage homes that we're surrounded by that are not efficient to run. They're expensive to replace, and there's people are like crowding in there, right? Like, so I don't think all of the affordable housing is down here.
No.
Like at a glance.
But it used to be an attraction from somebody to find a place cheap enough to rent, because there's buildings that weren't worth investing in, so they were getting as much as they could. So that was part of the problem. And I think it's a natural business cycle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and it's still kind of an issue. We have some building owners and landlords that we don't know who they are and where they are. And those are the ones that are creating this kind of negative impact, and like they're not being upgraded and things aren't getting taken care of, but that is changing with new investment coming in.
So I think we have a really good understanding from where your group's coming from, and that there's a need for a specific consultation with the people impacted by what the report's recommending, and then the community at large, really, and city council needs to have a little bit more. Everybody has to be in on this decision, so that it's not. And
part of the constructive criticism, right? Like, be constructive. I think in criticism, if you just want to be a hater and just people want to just get mad, that's your role. You do you, whatever. Probably not going to change your way of doing things. But if people feel constructive in their criticism and have these ideas, there should be an outlet for that, because some really good things come from that, like an open dialogue, just like thinking outside the box.
And the report really did, the Homeless Hub report really does provide a roadmap to creating one. But what it didn't address was the impact if you put it downtown, the impact it would have on.
There was no consultation on that.
And that was the part that kind of surprised me a bit.
Yeah.
Because, and I guess at the end of the day, it's happening now.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's not after the decision. So
right.
we have come
so it's not too late.
A good point.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing. I think that's important to voice that it actually was, it's proactive, not obviously where we would have started, but we learn from this and hopefully in the future make those different decisions with consultants. I do think just reading it, the study, it did seem like we were just kind of like looked at like in any other community, any other city. But we are very not, like every city is unique. Again, so this homeless hub concept, I think, is one idea.
Yeah. So we need to take it and see, adapt it to North Bay.
Yeah. See if it makes sense.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there can be a good outcome. I think we can be positive about the future. North Bay cares. Like the people that care. Obviously, you guys have been talking to a lot of people, and it is a really. This has brought people together. So like the Chamber of Commerce too, like we work with, like we rent out of the DIA rents out of the Chamber of Commerce, but that has brought us together. Our membership is engaged, and I've never felt so supported actually, and it's all because of this. So I'm hoping that this is like the new way of like we all have to be involved at some point.
You were saying how excited and encouraged you were at the AGM, at the annual general meeting with the turnout. Yeah. Right?
It's totally encouraged. I get it. Like I own 2 businesses, so I understand that at the end of the day you want to close your door and go home, especially like coming off of COVID and like surviving that, and then we have construction. So I get it the most, but when it comes down to these really important decisions that are affecting these investments and time that we've all just been hanging on to the last chunk of time because of COVID and construction, it was just kind of that last little like punch in the gut of like, what is happening like without us being talked to. And yeah, so the membership, we had Oak Street representation, we had McIntyre Street, we had, like services, we had retail, we had restaurants. We want to hear from everybody because we're voted in, but we need people to realize that vote actually does go somewhere, and it can make a difference because we are, here for that reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Well, this has been another great Between Two Daves discussion on Small Town Times. Thank you very much for liking, subscribing, commenting. Comments are great, helps the analytics, pushes it out to more people. As well, you'll find this on the northbayecho.ca website, and that's where I put all the Small Town Times stuff, along with a bunch of other podcasters and locals that are trying to do justice to the issues that we face. So northbayecho.ca, I do a newsletter Tuesdays and Thursdays. Please subscribe. And have I missed any plugs there, Dave?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you very much again.
Shop downtown.
Shop downtown. Come down to our Waterfront.
Just walk downtown. Yeah, enjoy it.
It's not as bad as some people think.
No.
And there's a lot of support down here. In fact, with the more people that are here running businesses, the safer it is.
Yeah.
And I will say that one of the things I do miss about not being on council is working with you and the team down here. I mean, that was one of the parts that I really, really enjoyed. So
thank you, Dave, very
much. Keep it going.
Thank you very much. The support helps.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Have a good day.
Awesome.